Ladies and gentlemen, I've done this 3 times now. So today's dissertation is going to be about Zion. It's going to be about the horn that was given unto David by God, that is supposed to bud and shed light at the same time. As opposed, and that horn is described in Psalms 132, verses 11 through 17. That's completely different than the horn that we went over the other day, that is in Revelations 5, verse 6. Because that horn is down low. It said, I beheld, and lo, a horn, in Revelations 5, 6. In Psalms 132, 11 through 17, this horn buds upwards as a bud and sheds light. So these are 2 different things. The horn that blew downward sent off a sound, but if something went down, if it was related to a plant life, it would be a root. Even though Revelations 5, 6 was not related to a root, if something goes downward, typically it is root. If something goes upward, typically it blossoms or blooms like a bud. If it has light, then you're looking for something that's similar to a candle or of a glowing nature, especially if it's attached to something in the earth. It's probably not fire per se, but it's giving off light. And that is the understanding of how pictography can take place in your mind as well as mine. And that is how I teach it in my book, through the symbols and the understanding of how I came to the symbols. I don't just say it's a horn and leave it at that. I say it's a horn because it's fluted. It has sound because it has 6 more sound waves in Revelation 5, verse 6. Now those sound waves, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, that emanate from the horn. There's a reason that there's only 6 sound waves. Because later on, or prior to that in the Bible, when the Lord blows the horn 7 times, the walls of Jericho fall down. It has to do with pictography in other verses. It is also a representation of something else that is magnified like thunder, a thunderous sound that surrounds the word one. That is the understanding and the conceptualization of pictography when it comes to these complex series of codices between the words in the Living Bible and the pictographs or ideographs that appear on the $1 bill. What I do with that is I interpolate the pictographs into something that is known as iconology, where I look at the deeper meanings of the words themselves and the significance of the icons in relationship to the icons in front of or behind or up or down or to the side. I relate all the icons pertaining to the verse and chapter. I find the direction on the $1 bill that we are supposed to be perceiving these icons from, and then I go through the tree of language of when that verse was supposed to have been written, because that's also part of the codices. If something was written 6,000 years ago, the word bud might mean something different than the word bud in 1973, because everybody knows in 1973 a bud was a cola that came on a stick for $10, and that shit used to monkey you up. But anyway, that's the difference. A bud back then could have been a bud, but a bud in 1973, let me tell you something. You smoke one of them, I mean, you know, one of them buds, you was good. You was good. You was good for nothing is what you was good for. But anyway, bud has a different meaning. And I have my glasses on straight. I hate when that happens. Bud had a different meaning altogether. So we're going to talk about Zion. This is Mount Zion, ladies and gentlemen. What you see on your computer screen is in fact Mount Zion when it comes to the biblical prophecies of this particular passage in Psalms. This is a representation of a peak or a mountain, so to speak. In pictography, this is a high point on the reverse of the $1 bill. In fact, it's the only high point on the reverse of the $1 bill. And of course, this is my book, and this is how the book works. There's a chapter and verse. There's a complete search engine by pressing edit on the left-hand top-hand corner of the screen. There's a complete search engine, and what we're going to do is we're going to minimize this down to 400% so that you can see this. in its entirety, the whole of Mount Zion, which again, you know it's a protected area because it's the habitat of the Lord God. And this angel that is represented as the wings in green is the angel known as the sixth-winged seraphim. These are the eyes before and behind of the sixth-winged seraphim. Ladies and gentlemen, make no mistake about it. In this passage, this is Zion. And we're going to go, before we go to East Sword, we're going to just go online and see the meaning of Zion, aka what it says here is, the meaning of Zion has grown tremendously from David's time 3,000 years ago. From the physical place where a conquering Israelite king became his home for the benefit of his people, to a spiritual place. Mount Zion has changed from a physical place to a spiritual place. So it is no longer the Mount Zion that is discussed in the Bible. And these Bible scholars actually admit that this is taking place. However, these so-called scholars got nothing on me. Matter of fact, they got nothing going for them because all they really did was spend millions and millions of dollars studying seminary in their school, in the seminary schools. Because they don't, if they were so smart, the so-called scholars, why didn't they see the Ark of the Covenant on a $1 bill? Because they're not smart. Because they understand rote memorization. They repeat words from a book. Now, moving back to this, it says, it was changed into a spiritual place where another conquering king will establish his home for the benefit of all people. Now, you know and I know that I believe that the pictograph that appears on the $1 bill, that is the Great Pyramid, represents God. It represents the one true God of the entire universe. It does not, and I repeat, it does not represent anything to have to do with the Illuminati or any of the Bilderbergs or the Rothschilds or anything like that. When that pyramid was built by a God-like entity. When you read my book, by going to my site, by clicking the link under any of my videos, purchase the book for a lousy $12.25. If you can't scrape up $12.25, chip in for it with a couple of other people instead of buying a six-pack tonight. And read the book. It's easy enough to follow along. I make the words big. I make the letters in different colors. Zion, for instance, might be in one color. Mount might be in a different color, so you can see Mount Zion, red and green. There's all different ways I made these things highlighted. I created my own literary type of environment to make it simple to follow along. For $12.25, it's 1,990 pages. It's 602,000 words. And for 18 and a half months, not one person has complained about my poor grammar or my misuse of punctuation in some cases, and more to the point, not one person of all the people that bought books, not one person has made a complaint in public on YouTube or to me personally, not even one. So that crazy guy from Howard Beach who never wrote anything more than a lumber list for 25 years comes up with a 1,900-page book proving the existence of a God-like entity. Not God per se, because there is no way anybody in this world will ever nail down God to one precept, unless you move into a spiritual plane of consciousness above it all. And if you did that, you wouldn't even bother trying to explain it to the little people, us, the little people. You wouldn't even bother trying to explain it to the little people of the world, because once you move on to that plane of consciousness, you have two choices. You can explain it to the little people and be crucified on a cross like Christ was crucified on a cross, or you can just dilly about your day and have a good time here on planet Earth while experiencing the positive and negative aspects of the universe. That's what you would do if you were enlightened. There's just two choices. Either keep your mouth shut and have a good time, or just continue along and just keep spouting off all kinds of nonsense about God and how you can, and then they crucify you. The Catholic Church would be the first one up with the crucifixion. Burn him at the stake. He's going against the Catholic Church. We protect pedophiles. We are godlike. We are intermediaries between man and God. We are the people that play chess with the pedophile. You got a pedophile in Argentina, we'll move him to Aruba. You'll never know the difference. We are the Catholic Church, ladies and gentlemen. Getting back to Mount Zion, this is a representation of Mount Zion here on earth. Now, to prove this to you, this, as I said, is the highest point, which would be several hundred feet above sea level. So you know it's a high point in reality, in actual physical reality. And now, you're looking for something in Psalms that looks like a bud. Well, this is coming out of the top. You are also looking for something that sheds light. You are also looking for something that sheds light. And there you have Psalms 132:17, and you know what time it is, ladies and gentlemen. It's time for me to get a bigger camera.